Let's take a look at our sports.
Here are the results from college football for Week 9. Purdue was beaten by Rutgers last Saturday. The final score was 27-24. Nebraska overcame Northwestern by a score of 28-21 last Saturday. Wake Forest beat SMU by a score of 13-12 last Saturday. Indiana outdid UCLA by a score of 56-6 last Saturday. Kansas lost to Kansas State last Saturday. The final score was 42-17. Do you want to hear the next 5 games?
Yes.
Oklahoma was defeated by Ole Miss last Saturday. The final score was 34-26. North Carolina was defeated in overtime by Virginia last Saturday. The final score was 17-16. Memphis outdid South Florida by a score of 34-31 last Saturday. Georgia Tech bested Syracuse by a score of 41-16 last Saturday. Arkansas was beaten by Auburn last Saturday. The final score was 33-24. Want the next 5 games?
Yes.
Vanderbilt overcame Missouri by a score of 17-10 last Saturday. Washington State beat Toledo by a score of 28-7 last Saturday. Iowa State lost to BYU last Saturday. The final score was 41-27. South Carolina was beaten by Alabama last Saturday. The final score was 29-22. Iowa beat Minnesota by a score of 41-3 last Saturday. Want the next 5 games?
Yes.
Washington bested Illinois by a score of 42-25 last Saturday. Pittsburgh bested NC State by a score of 53-34 last Saturday. Cincinnati outdid Baylor by a score of 41-20 last Saturday. Texas Tech bested Oklahoma State by a score of 42-0 last Saturday. Mississippi State lost in overtime to Texas last Saturday. The final score was 45-38. Do you want to hear the last 5 games?
Yes.
West Virginia was defeated by TCU last Saturday. The final score was 23-17. Oregon beat Wisconsin by a score of 21-7 last Saturday. Miami bested Stanford by a score of 42-7 last Saturday. Louisville overcame Boston College by a score of 38-24 last Saturday. And Michigan State was defeated by Michigan last Saturday. The final score was 31-20.
NFL scores.
Here are the results from the NFL for Week 8. The Chiefs beat the Commanders by a score of 28-7 yesterday. The Bengals were beaten by the Jets last Sunday. The final score was 39-38. The Eagles beat the Giants by a score of 38-20 last Sunday. The Falcons were defeated by the Dolphins last Sunday. The final score was 34-10. The Panthers lost to the Bills last Sunday. The final score was 40-9. Do you want to hear the next 5 games?
Yes.
The Patriots outdid the Browns by a score of 32-13 last Sunday. The Ravens overcame the Bears by a score of 30-16 last Sunday. The Texans outdid the 49ers by a score of 26-15 last Sunday. The Saints were beaten by the Buccaneers last Sunday. The final score was 23-3. The Broncos defeated the Cowboys by a score of 44-24 last Sunday. Do you want to hear the last 3 games?
Yes.
The Colts outdid the Titans by a score of 38-14 last Sunday. The Steelers were beaten by the Packers last Sunday. The final score was 35-25. And the Chargers defeated the Vikings by a score of 37-10 last Thursday.
And that's a look at our sports. Remember to like, subscribe, keep comments appropriate and respectful.